Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Just waiting for a few more seconds to allow people to join. Hello, for those who are joining. I'm just allowing a few more seconds for people to join the sessions and we'll kick off shortly. Welcome to this session. Good. I think I will be kicking off. Again, hello everyone, and thank you for joining today. Before I start, if you have any questions during the session, just feel free to pop your questions on the Q&A sections. I'll make sure I'll allow some time at the end of the session to go through these questions. Maybe during the session I may answer your questions, but yeah, I'll make sure we have time at the very end so we can go through those. Having said that, I'll just kick off then. My name is Barbara. I work on in the HR technology space, focusing mainly on HR transformation projects or programs, implementation projects around HR platforms. My experience comes from specifically SAP SuccessFactors. I'm sure many of you may know this platform very well. But I also have experience doing solution advisory and solution optimizations. Very happy to be speaking today about HR tech transformation, not only because it's my core experience, but also because I think there's a particular interest or is a trending top, I will say, lately, a hot topic that there's a lot of discussions around HR transformation or HR tech transformation. And if we think a little bit, over the last or the past 10 years, we've seen, the organizations invest significantly in, HR technology, moving from different systems or, spreadsheets or very heavy manual processes into a more modern HR platform that promise, to get, a connected and digital space or employee experience. And then many of these organizations today have implemented this core HR systems, modern payroll as well. They also may have, digital solutions for recruiting or for performance or, all the employee experience solutions. Then what I've seen across, many organizations as well is that implementing HR technology is just, the actual easy part. And it may sound, as a surprise, or it may come as a surprise, but it is actually like that. It's the very easy part. Just get the new technology and put the technology in. What the real challenge is for these organizations, or perhaps as well the real opportunity, is how the organization transforms the way their HR operates, and get the real value from this system, from the systems they implemented. And I think this is exactly what the conversation is evolving in 2026. So today I'll try to share some perspective of what HR technology or HR tech transformation looks like in 2026. And this is just based on, what we've seen across the organizations implementing different systems and evolving those HR ecosystems. Before I actually jump on, or we look into this HR transformation and how this is going, perhaps it's useful for us to understand how we got where we are today, how we got here. If we see this slide, we can see that, in the past, as I said, 10 to 15 years, HR technology has evolved in what I will say 3 major phases. We have this very first phase, the digitalization. What we've seen here, we had the organizations that were moving away, as I said before, the spreadsheets, the manual processes, or the paper-based process, this way of having disconnected systems. And the focus was primarily to just implement a core HR platform just to centralize the employee data and standardize those HR processes across the organization. We know there's a lot of organizations that are still going or still in that phase, but this started, as I said, perhaps 10 years ago. And then for many HR teams, what this was actually a major shift, because instead of managing, the employee data across multiple systems, or outside a system or through a manual process, they suddenly had a single source of truth for the employee information. And then these processes like the hiring, organizational changes, or even a performance review could be managed in a consistent way across the organization. So the main questions that the organizations were asking in this phase was, how do we digitalize HR and move away from manual processes? Then we enter the second phase, which focused more on what was the employee experience like. So we had once the organization had a core HR system in place, then the focus became the employee. So now the organizations started to invest on other platforms, or for the benefit of the employee experience. So perhaps recruiting platforms, or learning platforms, or performance management platforms. The goal here on this phase was to create perhaps a more intuitive or employee-centric experience. Employees started to expect things like self-service for some HR processes, or mobile app access, or even more transparent tools for performance and career development conversations. So on this question, the evolving from the HR digitalization got a little bit broader, and was like, okay, how do we create a better and more engaging experience for the employee? And now we are entering this third phase that I would describe as intelligence and workforce insight. So the organizations, they are no longer asking today, how do we automate HR processes? They know how to do that, right? So what they are asking is, how do we make better workforce decisions? Because now we have the HR data centralized, it's digitalized, and then all of the sudden these organizations, they have a huge amount of data or workforce data available. And then that opens perhaps a door to new possibilities. For example, how do we understand skills across the workforce? Can we support, internal mobility and career development, or using this workforce analytics and data to support planning and decision making even more? Leveraging AI tools for HR processes in certain HR areas. So these topics like skills intelligence, workforce analytics, talent mobility, AI tools for HR are becoming this central piece for HR transformation. And this is perhaps this is actually the phase we are entering now. And before we deep dive into HR transformation, I'm sure this will not come as a surprise, but if we focus a little bit over the past year and a half, all we heard was about AI in HR, but at the same time, all we heard was discussions around skills-based organizations. The idea that the organization should move from manage talent purely through job roles, but now through skills, and just starting that conversation. And these two things, AI and skill-based, they are very much connected. Why? Because AI is enabling the organizations to analyze the workforce data at a scale, so it helps identify skills gaps, suggesting career path, recommendations for employee matchings to internal opportunities. So what we see is that technology is evolving very, very quickly, and then the organizations are still, trying to figure out how to put these new ideas in practice. How do they build a skills framework across, the thousands of employees? How they ensure the HR teams trust AI-supported recommendations? How then you can embed these capabilities into your other everyday HR processes? So again, while technology is advancing like a very fast pace, then we have the organizational transformation behind it, still trying to, catch up with this. Now, again, the organization moves into this third phase that I mentioned, this technology landscape becomes itself much more complex. We see today that the technology landscape today is not just around one center and single system. Most of the organizations just do not operate one HR platform. What we see is that they operate an ecosystem of different HR technologies or tools that together support the full, employee cycle or life cycle. And this landscape or ecosystem includes a core HR platform. Maybe payroll is on the same platform, but sometimes it's a different platform from payroll. And then we have a specialized recruiting tool or specialized learning tools, or even engagement platforms, workforce analytics tools, and of course, specialized AI tools that leverage all these other platforms. So what we see today is that perhaps there are many organizations or large organizations that they have more than 10 HR-related systems operating together. And this is not a bad thing, okay? I'm not saying that. But what these tools bring, is, a lot of capability and innovation to the HR teams. But as you may imagine, this also introduces a new level of complexity within the HR landscape, because when you start, operating multiple systems, the focus quickly shifts, for a single system or a source into how we can make all of these tools work together. So the questions that we see the organizations asking are, how do we effectively integrate this system? Can they actually, communicate with each other? Are the information or the data exchange reliable? And this question actually becomes really important when we also introduce the AI capabilities, because we know that the AI tools rely heavily on the data quality and data consistency that we have on our platform. So if the data sits across multiple systems, right, and we don't have those systems very well integrated, then the value that AI will bring, it will be a lot or much more limited, and that perhaps will lead us to another question. How do we ensure the data consistency across all these platforms? How do we ensure that the employee data that we rely for the reporting, the analytics, or AI relies to provide insight is accurate and aligned across all the systems. There are other things to consider here, and I think it's one thing that is very, very important as well is the adoption, because we bring in new technology, we bring in a complex HR technology landscape with the best of breed solution, but this will not deliver value if people actually don't use it. So then the final question would be, okay, how do we ensure that the HR teams and the employees actually adopt all these tools that we bring to them, and it helps them manage, their daily work, because in the end, if we think of HR transformation, it's not just about bringing in a new technology or implementing a new technology. It's also about making sure that that technology becomes part of how your organization or how the organization operates moving forward. And perhaps this brings us to an interesting conversation that I see emerging, in many organizations, which is the clean core concept. So we are thinking on, HR tech transformation, and then, as I mentioned before, we see that the HR technology ecosystem becomes sometimes very complex, and then the organization start to rethink, how they will design the HR technology architecture. And the common question that comes from HR and IT leaders is, okay, should we continue adding these, specialized tools to our HR landscape, or should we simplify it and consolidate more function within our core HR platform? And this becomes perhaps a balance, I was saying, to two different strategies. On one side, we have the best of breed approach. This is when, the organization chooses or selects, very specialized tools for specific HR capabilities. For example, a dedicated platform for recruiting, or a dedicated platform for learning or for performance. And what we know is that these tools bring very strong functionality and innovation within their specific area. But then over time, what we also know is that can lead to very complex technology landscape, because many different systems will need to be integrated, maintained, and will need to make sure that they communicate well between each other. On the other side, we have the what we might call the platform strategy, right? So, or as I said before, what we refer to as clean core. What organizations do in this approach is try to keep the core HR platform as the central foundation, and then limit the number of additional systems around it. So instead of continuously adding new tools, they try to extend the capabilities of the core platform through extensions or new features, or even built-in functionality. What this approach brings is, simplicity or scalability, or even easier system governance. Reality being is that most of organizations don't follow one approach or the other one. They just try to find the right balance between these two, which is, perhaps innovation and scalability or system governance. And then perhaps that leads the organization to a very strategic question. How do we design, an HR technology architecture that is sustainable, scalable, and adaptable over time? Because again, HR technology will continue to evolve in a fast pace, and then the organizations need to make sure that the architecture they find can evolve with it. Good. So if we focus a little bit on HR transformation, and then a little bit, I'd bring here a little of experience based on these programs and projects that I've been in. So since I've been doing this for the past, I'll say, 15 years, HR space has changed significantly, as I said. But what we see is that the biggest challenge is not always the technology, or is rarely the technology. Most of the time, the technology just works, well, but then the real challenge comes from perhaps an organizational and a strategic perspective. And I wanted to highlight here a few examples of this. And I'm sure you might be very aware of some of these examples. But let's start with the first challenge, adoption. I mean, many organizations successfully implemented HR systems. We know that implementation went really, really well. But then what happens is, like, months or even years after, adoption remains lower than expected. And then we see that employees are still relying on, I don't know, email-based processes or manual workarounds instead of using the system that was implemented. And again, this is not because the technology is difficult to use. It could be sometimes, but often it's not because of that. Usually, this is because the organization has not, fully adapted its processes or its communication or the training around the new system, right? So we see that the organization, in transformation projects, they invest heavily into the implementation, but then significantly less into the change management and adoption. And again, without adoption, you can have the best technology, the best tool, but it will not deliver the full value. Then we have the second challenge, data quality and data consistency. I did discuss this earlier. HR ecosystems today often include multiple systems, and then as the ecosystem grows, the data model becomes more complex. So the systems may store the same or similar information in different ways, or updates in one system may not always synchronize immediately with another system. And then this becomes important because when we want to leverage, analytics, reporting, or your current tools, or even use AI capabilities, we rely heavily on the quality and the consistency of the data. So what we often say here is, like, AI is only as good as the data behind it. Okay. Then we have the operating model alignment. Again, technology evolves faster than HR organization itself. And then we see new systems are implemented. They bring or introduce new capabilities, new workflows, new ways of working. But then we have the HR teams that struggle to adapt their own processes or governance or roles into those new capabilities. And then what happens is that we cannot fully leverage the capabilities. So if we don't, or if the organization brings in new capability, but they continue to operate in an old model process or with old governance, this technology will never get into their full potential. Again, so it requires that the technology evolves, the HR transformation, but also it requires that HR evolves, or HR operations evolve as well as a function. And then we have value realization, which I think is the most important challenge. So we know, and I said this, the organization will invest significant budgets into HR transformation programs. Once the system is implemented, you will get one simple question from the senior stakeholders: what value are we getting from this investment? Are the HR processes becoming more efficient? Are employees having a better experience? Can leaders make better workforce decisions? So, the implementation of the system implementation was successful. We had a successful go live, but the transformation does not end at the go live. So it requires that the organization has continuous improvement, continuous optimization, and this collaboration and alignment between HR, between IT, and between the stakeholders. And I will move a little bit faster, conscious of time. Now, what we see are the 4 pillars for this transformation. Okay, so based on our experience, these pillars, as you can see, are not necessarily technology features. They are just ways the organization structure their HR transformation strategy. And we have 4 pillars here. I did mention already HR platform as an ecosystem. I'm not going to mention much more here, but the key here is integration and architecture. We need to make sure that the systems can work together rather than creating fragmented, experiences. The second pillar, skills-based organization. Again, we are seeing a shift from role-based talent management to skills-based talent management. And this has started, and the conversation has started the past, year and a half. The third pillar, I also mentioned this, AI in HR. So AI, it's already supporting different areas, recruiting, performance and goals, skills matching, but it will only be successful if the organization can implement this in a pragmatic way. The goal should be that it should help managers, on decision making, simplifying their day-to-day processes. It should become a productivity tool for HR teams and managers. And then value realization, which I just mentioned as well. HR transformation does not end on the go live. It has to, that often will be the beginning. You have to get the most value out of this, and that will be through continuous optimization of processes, system capability, and adoption as well. Now, if we look, at the organizations that are succeeding in HR transformation, we can simplify, and I know it's very difficult to simplify, but we can try to simplify this into main, let's say, boxes. The first one, I did mention this, they treat HR transformation as a long-term journey. It's not a one-time project, okay? Technology evolves quickly, and then the organization that succeeds are those that continuously evolve their HR capabilities as well. And they also invest in change management and adoption. As I said, it's very important that we can get the most value out of the HR platforms that we use. Then we have, as I mentioned as well, data quality and governance, right? So data is very, very important and the foundation for workforce analytics, skills intelligence, AI-driven insight. So without reliable data, we don't have capabilities that can function properly. And then what I also mentioned is the strong collaboration between HR, IT, and business leadership. That will help define, the best strategic platform for the workforce decision-making. Finally, as a close, and hopefully I'll have at least 1 or 2 minutes or 1 minute for questions. Just wanted to summarize that, again, we know technology, is evolving rapidly and is offering incredible opportunities for the organizations. But again, this transformation or HR tech transformation will not come from technology itself. It will come from how the organization rethink the way HR operates. With new technology, we need to rethink the way HR operates, how they use the data and the insights to support the decisions, how they continuously evolve the HR ecosystem, okay? And often this is where we see organizations need support, right? Not only with implementing the technology, but defining what the strategy behind that would be, designing the right HR technology architecture or HR ecosystem landscape, prioritizing transformation initiatives, ensure, real value is delivered from this investment and initiatives. So I think the main question that we see on the organizations today It's not longer like which technology or HR technology should we implement. I think that it's an easy decision. It's more like how do we use the technology to unlock the full potential of the workforce. Hopefully, that will give you an overview of where we're going in 2026. Thank you very much for your time, and probably we'll be able to take 1 or 2 questions before closing. Do you have an example of an organization that has managed to become truly skill-based? How did they access this? They are in the process. I have been working with a few organizations, and they started the process a year ago, and that's still work in process. I don't think it's something that happens from one day to the other one. I think the difference between technology implementation, this goes as an iterative process. You start small and then you build from there. So they are in the process, but I would say they haven't reached yet fully or 100% skills based. Hope that answered the question. And then how much does the choice of technology impact employee experience and culture in your opinion? A lot. But I think also if relevant stakeholders support and sponsor the technology, and also we focus on change management and adoption a lot more than we normally do, I think that changed a lot the impact on the employees. And then how do you upskill HR to use the data? Well, that's a very good question. It's not easy, but I think that's where AI tools come in, just to help your HR people, get better insight or understand better the data that is in the system. And I think that's very important from the AI tools that you choose and you use. Knowing that you have quality data in your ecosystem, in your space. Again, thank you, everyone. If you have any more questions or you would like to connect, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, to drop me an email. I hope this session was insightful.